No, but it's a humble position, agnosticism, isn't it? So,
sure, yeah.
fair enough. No, I mean, it's good that I'm talking to you about it, because what I wanted to say is, first and foremost is, let's ask the overall question. Yeah? Before we talk about human beings, I heard you talking about like kind of evolutionary type things with the other gentleman, yeah?
Yeah.
But generally, I wanted to ask you, like, how do you explain us being here? How did the universe come into existence?
The most truthful answer I can give is that we don't have concrete evidence of any given means of creation of our universe yet.
Let me ask you a better question.
Okay.
Max, yeah?
Yeah.
This is the thing. This seriously, yeah?
Right.
Whenever I speak to atheists, it always boils, obviously and rightfully so, down to the evidence, doesn't it, yeah? Okay. What is your truth standard? What for you is sufficient evidence? Generally speaking, in order for you to accept a thing.
In order for me to accept something as likely true, because I think if you have a truthful scientific view of the world, you'll never accept anything as 100% concretely true, right? Like, we've printed hundreds of thousands of books, and every single time we do it, we apply ink to a letter, and we press that letter into the page. And so we print a word there. It is possible that one time when we apply ink to a letter and press it into a page, the book will spontaneously combust. I haven't seen it yet, you haven't seen it yet, but we can't say with 100% certainty that it couldn't happen, right? So what I'm operating from is a theory basis. Yeah. So what I would accept as truth would be a body of research or evidence or a conversation that strongly suggests something. For instance, like, you know, we believe that aircraft will fly every time we apply a given amount of thrust to a wing with a given shape, because we've tested that hundreds of thousands of times, and every single time the aircraft takes off. It's possible that it won't one time, but the body of evidence suggests that it will.
Okay, I like that.
Right.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah.
So in short, what you're saying is you accept what you could say is a probabilistic type reasoning. Yeah?
Yeah.
So based on likelihoods, you assess whether a thing is true or false, generally speaking.
Likely or unlikely, I would say.
Yeah, likely or unlikely, and obviously that varies in proportions depending on what you're talking about. Yeah?
Generally speaking, depending on the size of the sample or evidence, right?
Okay.
So one experiment is a pretty weak proof. 100,000 experiments, fairly strong.
That's I agree with that. Yeah, very good. Now, let's apply this logic, because here what you've said is that you accept a probabilistic type reasoning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's apply this to the universe and its construction or its creation or whatever you want to call it, yeah, or its inception. My standard question to you would be then, how did the universe come into existence? What's your answer for that, first of all?
My answer is that we're still working on finding the truth of that, and that it's very difficult for us to find an absolute truth given the time scale that it occurred on. We have some theories that are looking increasingly likely, but we don't have an absolute answer. However, I don't believe the theists do either.
Okay, thank you. Now, you said you agree with the probabilistic type reasoning, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you accept that the universe is finely tuned?
Finely tuned? No.
And let me define what I mean by finely tuned. Yeah?
Okay.
What I mean by finely tuned is that the variables or the constants in terms of physics are set in such a way as to allow any life to exist. This is my definition of finely tuned.
Okay. Now, I would refute that by saying that on most planets that we've observed directly, because there are a lot that we haven't.
No, but I'm not talking about planets. I'm talking about the universe generally.
Yeah. Okay. So the universe generally is empty space. After that, it's ultra-hot gas giants, it's black holes, it's stars.
Yeah, so all of the constants,
an incomprehensibly small portion of it is suitable for some life. That's a far cry from finely tuned for life to exist.
No, that's not correct, because you can the question of whether life is fit to exist in the universe is a dichotomous question. So it's either yes or no. So I would ask you, is the universe tuned or finely tuned for any life to exist in it? You would answer by saying yes or no. And if you say no, you have to substantiate that in the light of the evidences. No. Because if there's any kind of life that exists in the universe, no matter how small or insignificant in your eyes, that disproves your thesis. Do you understand the point?
I don't believe that to be true, but for the sake of continuing this discussion, I'll accept that a portion of the universe is a good location for life to occur.
But let's not just for the sake of this argument, because what you've done here is you've given me no reason. Here we know that life exists on this universe, yes or no?
Well, yeah, we're standing here, aren't we?
We know that the universe facilitated that in terms of its constants and its physical properties, yes or no?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, fine. Now, where the life exists, how much life exists in terms of quantity, these are peripheral questions or additional questions or supplementary questions. They don't affect the question at hand, which is does the universe, or is the universe finely tuned for any kind of life to exist? And I'm not honing in on human beings and saying that human beings here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm
life
saying
in
any
general,
kind of life to exist.
Does the universe allow life to exist?
Yes, that's the question. Thank you very much. Now, according to the majority, it's almost a consensus in science now, yeah, in terms of physics, that physicists, whether they be agnostic, atheistic, or theistic, acknowledge the fine-tuning of the universe. Now, Stephen Hawking says this in The Brief History of Time. Even Richard Dawkins says this. Many different people, obviously Martin Rees wrote the book Just Six Numbers, many different individuals, they make this claim, okay? My point is, when they say this, what they're effectively saying is that the constants in terms of physics are so finely tuned, had they been otherwise adjusted, the universe would not allow any kind of life to exist. And therefore, me and you couldn't have this conversation. Does this make sense so far?
Yeah, if the universe was tuned in such a way that life couldn't exist in it, then life wouldn't exist in it. That's true, but it's also kind of an end in itself.
Okay, now, my question is, probabilistically, because this was obviously...
Yeah, an argument from probability.
Yeah, your argument for probability. Yeah. This was your original point, wasn't it? So, probabilistically now, I'm asking you a very simple question. What is the probability that the universe could have randomly allowed for human life to, or any life to exist?
So this is like, could the room full of monkeys and typewriters eventually write Shakespeare thing, right?
No, because...
Well, no, it is. It's the same argument. I mean, it's different constituent parts, but it's the same core argument. So obviously, the probability is quite high. No. Let me answer your question directly. The probability is necessarily high enough for that to occur, because if you accept that the universe is more or less infinite, right?
No.
You don't. You think there's an edge?
Well, do you think that the universe didn't have a beginning?
It may or may not have.
Wait, hold on. Because now, you're moving away from the scientific evidence. The majority of scientists clearly believe in the Big Bang and clearly believe in the expanding universe model.
That is not true. Those are both theories.
No, but do you not believe in that?
And a great number of scientists accept them.
I'm not saying that you're compelled. I'm just saying, it's fine. I'm just saying, you don't have to accept those things.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. You asked me if I believe that, like, what the probability is that the universe, when just interacting randomly with itself, would produce the conditions necessary for life.
By the way.
No? Okay, clarify.
I said, generally speaking, I didn't say interacting randomly with myself. That wasn't an insertion I made, Max.
Okay.
I said, generally speaking, the inception of the universe, yeah? Upon the inception, if you obviously believe in an inception at the beginning of the universe, which you're saying you don't. I do. Yeah, which you're saying you don't. But...
Well, no, I'm not saying I don't or I do, I'm saying I don't know.
Okay, fine, that's fair enough. That's a fair enough position. Max. That's a fair enough position. But what I'm saying is, you're saying, and you wanted to presuppose here, for this conversation to continue, that the universe existed for an infinitely long amount of time. Now I'm saying, what's the proof for that? Since you're the one who's asking for proof, generally, I'm also in my right to ask you for your proof.
Sure. We don't have any proof based on carbon dating or any other scientific means that really extends much beyond the borders of this planet and maybe some adjacent ones. Like, as I understand it, we've taken soil samples from Mars, we've taken soil samples from the Moon. And in both of those cases, the soil samples that we took were able to be carbon dated back a certain amount of time. However, we didn't take deep core samples from the Moon or Mars, so we can't rightly say at this point in time whether we know as an absolute truth how old either one of those bodies are. Now, keep in mind, we've only touched 2 celestial bodies in our solar system, which is a limited part of a galaxy, so on and so forth. So, obviously, no scientist in their right mind would claim to have absolute knowledge of the beginnings of the universe. All we have are theoretical models.
Okay, thank you very much. But you're now presupposing a beginning of the universe, because what you said, just to summarize what you've said there, is that you don't have any evidences or proof to suggest that the universe was here for an infinite amount of time. That's what you said.
I certainly don't have proof.
Okay, you don't have proof. So that's the thing. To be honest with you here, Max,
yeah.
I have to be honest with you. You seem like a very genuine guy, yeah?
Sure.
You seem to be deviating away from the principle that you've laid down for yourself. In the beginning of this conversation, I said to you, what is your standard of truth? What kind of thing would you accept?
The main thing is to explore.
Yeah, of course, yes, to explore the world. But I was going to say, generally speaking,
yeah.
In the beginning you said that my standard of truth is a probabilistic one.
Yeah.
Yes? Based on evidences, you compile the evidences together and come to conclusions based on that evidences, based on those evidences, on that data, those sets of data. on whether you think something is probable or not probable.
Sure.
Okay. And then in the same breath, or in a later statement, you said that I don't have any evidences for the fact that the universe was around for an infinite amount of time.
Yeah, so especially if we confine it to me as a person standing here right now, but in a more general sense in terms of what I've learned, we do not have concrete evidence one way or the other.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if that's the case, why would you put that as a presupposition? It's very odd. So why would you assume that the universe here existed forever? You said no,
it may have.
Okay.
There's a very great gap, and we should be precise about this. There's a very great gap between saying that something is likely or unlikely and saying it's possible, and also another gap over to saying that it's true. Okay. I did not say it was true.
No,
I did not say it was particularly likely or unlikely. I said it was possible.
No, I like that.
It's possible to find spaghetti monsters up there somewhere. So let's just be clear. I'm not saying that it's 100%
you know
true
what
or
is,
untrue.
can I tell you and the people something right here and right now? Yeah?
Yeah, that's the purpose of this, isn't it?
Yes. No, Max, I need to tell you something.
All right.
I need to tell you something because, you know, and this might sound, I want you guys, like, generally to really picture what I'm saying.
Okay.
With infinity, literally almost everything is possible. I'll tell you what I mean by that.
That's correct. No, you don't have to explain it. I understand.
No, but I
completely.
just want to make sure, like you said, spaghetti monsters, yeah?
Yeah.
There is a probability, like, actually it's not a probability, it's 100% the case.
If
that
the
me and
universe
you
were infinite.
If the universe were infinite, me and you had this conversation before, from Pluto and Mars and all of these different planets.
Hang on. Not on Pluto or Mars. It's possible there's another universe very like ours.
But hold on,
there are people very like us, had a conversation very like this.
No.
But it is not possible that
Everything is
us
possible.
two had the exact same conversation.
This is what I want you to understand. With the existence of infinity, because look, people don't understand what infinity is. Infinity literally is everything becomes possible, literally. Now,
yeah, sure. There's an unending number of iterations of everything. So I suppose you could say that something very akin to this happened before. Sure.
No, this happened before in all the planets of the universe.
We don't know that because if
but that's happened.
Not necessarily happened. It could happen. It could have happened previously, or could happen in the future.
Yes, thank you. That's right. That's correct.
Yeah, you can't make an absolute statement based on infinity if, as you say, no one's understanding infinity.
So it's either happened before or it's going to happen in the future. That me and you have this conversation with Pluto and Mars.
It's not going to be on the same.
Anything is not going to be the same anytime.
No, but I know it sounds ridiculous.
Conceptually,
conceptually, it is true. Yes, because all these things.
Absolutions, I don't know what that is.
No. Absolutions. We're talking about past and present, and future as well. Yeah. With the existence of infinity, you've got everything is possible. Can you conceive this? Because I know it's difficult for you to conceive.
It's not difficult for me to conceive, so don't
but just generally, find that. So how is that possible? We don't understand. Well, with the existence, infinity is such a concept that almost everything becomes possible. Like I could be flying in another universe.
All right, you've made that point.
Okay, now. No, because this is important, right? If I say to you that if almost everything either has happened or will happen, then that would suggest here, this is important, that for you to say it's possible that the universe was infinite, or it's possible this or possible that, in the context of an infinite universe, it's really neither here
nor there. Just to be clear, have you accepted the premise that it is infinite?
Of course not. I've rejected that. Yeah. I've rejected this.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course, my friend.
It's nothing to repeat. It's just always evolution, and then it's a progress. So it's not you cannot have this version, what you said, in the past, or we're going to have in the future. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen that. Always is evolution.
But you understand?
Technically, every condition of this being the
Maybe
same.
in 2 million, human being doesn't exist no more. It's another spaceship.
Anyways,
Dominate the world.
thank you very much for your contribution. Is there anything you want to add? Anything more? Okay. But you understand the argument, the line of argument, yeah?
Sure. I would add one point though.
Yes, go ahead, please.
If the universe is infinite,
Yeah.
it is possible that this conversation will repeat or has occurred in the past. But this exact one, in this exact point in the universe physically, and also at this exact point chronologically, could not reoccur.
No. Who said that? What? Who made that? Who made that condition? No. Tell me the reason why. With the existence of infinity,
Because theoretically, even in an infinite universe, you know what? Maybe you could have a repeating point in space.
Of course you can. Yeah, you definitely will. Actually. Okay, so this infinity thing, by the way, which doesn't exist in the real world.
Okay.
I don't even believe infinity exists in the real world. Infinity doesn't exist in the real world.
We don't know that.
No, I mean mathematicians have spoken on this. Like Hilbert, you know the Hilbert hotel example.
Go ahead.
You know where he said that if you had a hotel with an infinite amount of rooms and 2 people left the hotel, yeah, how many people would you have in a hotel? Infinity minus 2. How can you have infinity minus 2? That's a contradiction.
It is, but if you accept that...
There's no way you can have infinity minus 2. That's a contradiction in terms.
Right,
if 2 people came into such a hotel, Hilbert says, what do you have then? Infinity plus 2.
Does the hotel have infinite rooms?
Yeah.
Does everything around the hotel have infinite space?
It's the hotel, yeah.
Are there an infinite number of people?
Yeah.
Is there a universe outside the hotel?
This is the presupposition. So, do you get what I'm saying here, yeah? This concept of infinity, when you scrutinize it from a philosophical perspective...
The only problem with that example, I suppose, is that if 2 people have escaped infinity and then gone back into it, it defeats the fact that the hotel is infinite. Because you can't leave it.
Thank you. That's correct. So it's a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, okay.
So the concept of infinity as applied in the quantifiable, tangible realm is something which actually cannot exist. It's not that it just doesn't exist. It's something which conceptually, mathematically, philosophically cannot exist. For the examples I've just given you, but it's not my example, it's the mathematician's example. It's Hilbert's example. It's called Hilbert's example.
But there's an assumption in that example, which is that the 2 people can leave the hotel.
Yeah, why shouldn't that be the assumption?
Well, because if the hotel's truly infinite, then how do you get out?
Well, I mean, what's this and this? How does that contradict that?
No. So you asked for a
Why
thought
does it have
experiment,
to
right?
be
So
prison?
this is your infinite hotel.
But it's
This
not,
is your
I
infinite
didn't say it's an
hotel.
infinite prison.
You have 2 individuals inside of it. The next thing you say is these 2 individuals leave it. Thereby, the hotel is no longer infinite because there's an edge in the escape. That is a finite hotel, my
Okay, so
friend.
that's exactly right. So what you've done there is you've correctly identified the contradiction of dealing with infinity.
Yeah. But that, as an example,
plus
does
or
not
minus
disprove the
dealing with
possibility of
infinity.
infinity to me. It just means that example is flawed.
Okay,
You can't take a flawed example
but
and
listen.
expand it to encompass the entire universe and expect that to convince me.
No, what I'm saying is, give me, okay, so in your case, I'm just going to ask you a question. Give me a quantifiable example of how infinity has existed in the real world.
You can't, that's the beauty of it.
No,
Maybe
sorry.
not this day, but in the future.
No, sorry.
How can you say
No,
something, the beauty of it, you can't understand? Isn't that like a cop-out? Like you're just escaping from, you just don't want to, like you don't want to accept the truth. Like,
Infinity is a concept.
So anything you can't understand is beautiful.
No, that's
You
specifically
actually
is
run away
beautiful.
with
The beauty to me of the infinite universe is that there are infinite possibilities, as you said. And you're trying to use this, although we haven't gotten there yet, to prove the existence of some sort of God, right? So if we jump a little closer to that.
I haven't even talked about God.
Okay. Well, what's your angle then?
Look, my angle is this. Look, Max, I've thoroughly enjoyed having this conversation with you because you're not just like the normal agnostic or atheist that really doesn't know the arguments. You're well aware of the arguments. I'm sure you have a book there that you've been reading.
Not about this, but it is a book, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just saw something, a scientific name of the book, so I thought.
It is a science book, yeah.
Listen, Max. Today, we have laid basically a basic premise, and we have agreed with that. This is the beauty of it. I call this beauty. We said that we both accept that something which has a probabilistic reasoning ought to be accepted. Sure. Okay. Now, going back. Since I said you cannot prove the existence of an infinite universe. It actually contradicts the science of today, for the most part. Like the expanding universe model, it does contradict it. You can't say it doesn't. Because the expanding universe model, where we've been able to identify, let's say for example, that there's an expanding universe because of the redshift of the stars and whatnot, yeah? This indicates that there was a singular beginning. And that's the Big Bang Theory, isn't it?
I wouldn't go that far. It indicates that things are separating from one another at a quantifiable rate, but that doesn't necessarily prove the existence of a beginning or end. It just proves the evidence you can see before you, which is that there is that redshift and there is some separation. But to jump from that and say that proves the Big Bang Theory is a large leap, which I'm not comfortable making.
Well,
how can you go backwards in time?
No. Think of it this way. Let me put it like in a scientific example that I'm sure they teach the kids in school. Yeah. I'm not saying that, but like
No, I understand, but they do teach the kids in school.
Yeah. So basically, you know when you have the balloon, or a balloon, and you blow a balloon. Now, if you blow up a balloon, obviously all the edges of the balloon are touching each other in the first instance, yeah?
When the balloon is unfilled?
Yes,
No,
unfilled.
not all of the edges. I'm sure there are some where they separate by a little bit.
Okay, I'm giving you,
For the sake of the example.
Okay,
Sure.
come on.
An infinitely
Come on.
contacting balloon. All right.
okay, fine. Now you blow up the balloon.
Yeah. It's very demonstrative. Yeah. Now you have a balloon.
Now you have a balloon. Now the balloon was expanding, yeah?
Uh-huh.
If you have an expanding balloon like that,
You're not making an argument from balloons to say the universe has to have had a Big Bang in order to be expanding, are
This
you?
is not my argument. This is how they did. This is how they explained to me when I was a boy in school in this country, my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how my atheist science teacher explained to me in GCSE
But I mean, when
science.
you're young enough, they tell you the mummy and
Sure,
daddy hug, and that's how babies
you
are.
explained in the similar way. They explained. That's how they explain it. The Big Bang model and they explain it, the expanding universe.
I believe these things you have to explore. It's not time to say that.
Okay.
like,
Let's, I don't want us to get lost in group discussion.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Wow, that guy's popular. So you have the expanding balloon.
See, look,
yes,
look,
somebody
can I
blew
say,
his balloon.
can I say something? Yeah? Sorry to say this, but some people they say that the Canadians don't have a sense of humor.
They're not correct.
No,
Maybe
no,
some
no.
of us, I don't know.
You've
But
heard this before, yeah? I'm sure. I mean,
I never heard that, but I live in the place, so I wouldn't know.
no. Some say that, but today I think you've given us evidence that we can put into our probability generator to.
Yeah, I would say I would
assume
give some
otherwise.
evidence in favor of there being humor in Canada,
Yeah. Go, tell me now.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, no doubt here.
Sure, so
The Big
something
Bang
acted
model,
on the balloon to make it expand.
The balloon had a starting point. Yeah, it had a singular point. This is the Big Bang theory. This is the Big Bang, and then it all expanded. That's
It's not the Big Bang Theory for this one reason. Big Bang Theory does not in any way mention or try to prove the existence of an external force acting on the beginning of the universe. The furthest that we've really gone is to
I'm
say
not
that
saying
there
that.
was
But
an
I'm
event
not-
in
I'm not-
time. So in your example,
Max.
there's you standing there blowing into a balloon. And also, there's something outside the balloon. There's the room that you're in.
Thank
now,
you.
neither one of those things is part of the Big Bang Theory. There is no
Accept it.
externality to the universe,
Accept
and
it.
there is no force acting on it.
No, the no externality of the universe is not it's not something you can say. It's something you can only be agnostic about.
Yeah, because we're inside the universe. so
Thank
how
you.
do we know?
Yeah. The whole thing about force, once again, it's only something we can be either agnostic or assured about. But you cannot
How can you be
neg-
assured about it?
Well, if you have, what I'm going to say right now, evidences or your probability reasoning suggests that, listen, going back to the fine tuning, that couldn't be that this finely tuned universe is a result of a random generation.
Why not?
Okay, tell me now, what's the probability of it being the case? Let me ask you a direct question. What is the probability, now that we've gotten rid of infinity, what is the probability that the universe could have come about out of a as finely tuned as it is in terms of physical constants, without the existence of an intelligence? Randomly. Tell me the answer.
I suppose it depends on your model a little bit, right? Because we could talk about one of two things. Like, what percentage of the universe is habitable? Or what is the probability that all of
We
the
had this
component
discussion
parts
before,
of the
Max.
universe interacting could
Max,
result in the conditions for life?
Max, we had this discussion before.
Yeah, I know.
So let's not go back, because we said already, so long as any part of the universe has life in it, then we can
Then we accept
firmly...
that the whole thing is quote-unquote finely tuned for life.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I have a little trouble with that language because, I mean, finely tuned, like a
Well, that's
portion.
the language the atheists use.
Okay.
Yes.
To answer your question in the way that you want me to.
No, not what you, just the way you
No,
want
okay,
to.
okay. But also the truth. It's
Yes.
very small. It took an incredibly long time for the conditions for life to arise.
Would it be 1%?
And the reason it
or
took
less
so
than
long.
1%?
Oh, far less than 1.
Far less than 1%. So okay, now please, Max. Here is the crossroads. We're standing at the junction, Max.
All right,
okay?
here we are.
No, seriously. No, this is it. And for all the atheists that are watching this, please ponder. Okay? Please ponder. You started off by saying that your method of conceptualizing truth and false is a probabilistic method. I have just asked you, what is the possibility of the universe
Do you always
coming
need to
about
review this much for your audience?
Pardon?
Do you always need to review this much for your audience?
It's always good to. What is the probability that the
Repetition
universe came about randomly without an intelligence? And you said far less than 1%, which would suggest that.
May I ask you a
let me
question in return?
Yes, of course.
Once
Let me
you're
just finish that. Yes.
Alright.
That would suggest that over 99, probably 0.9 recurring percent of the probability is in line with the idea that there's an intelligent force.
No.
1%.
Now tell me.
Massive logically, dude. You can't do
it's
that.
not opposite. Now tell me, hold on. Because the question I asked you, hold on, Max, the question I asked you is that if we're assuming there is no intelligence, what's the probability? And it's all random. You said less than 1%. So that would suggest that if there is an intelligence, that is 0. Whatever 1% or 99.9% the case. Do you get it? It makes perfect sense. Now tell me why it's a logical leap.
Yeah, so we just added, even in statistics, when you draw out a tree diagram, so if something is 1%, the other bit has to be 99, and then it spreads out from that 5%, you work out that 199.
Good, nice contribution.
Okay.
What's that more?
Now, here's how I dismantle your theory. We are standing in the universe where the conditions for life arose. So there may be a probabilistic argument to be made that there might have been, an intelligent designer that created the conditions for life. Maybe. But we are standing in one in which they did evolve randomly.
So now you're talking about the anthropic principle, yeah?
Sure.
Okay, do you know, even, to be honest with you, yeah? Even Richard Dawkins, you can go online and you check Richard Dawkins, yeah? Actually, I'll take that back. Don't check him out, but check him out on this issue, yeah? Right, Richard Dawkins.
No, check all of his stuff out, it's good.
Richard Dawkins' anthropic principle, yeah? He himself, he's not in favor of a strong anthropic principle. He said that the idea that you can make the argument that you've just made here, philosophically, and he's not really a philosopher really, it's a weak one. Why? And this is the old-fashioned example, yeah? Of someone, let's say for example, a group of people, a group of police officers, they run after you because maybe you've been a bad guy in Canada or something like that, yeah? You're a serial killer and they put you up against the wall. And then they all shoot you like this with a gun. All of them are shooting at you, maybe at 1 feet distance. All of them are shooting at you, yeah? And then at the end of it, you close your eyes. And then you open your eyes, Max. And you look behind you, Max, and you realize that all the bullets literally were around the body, your body. And you say, look, man, you say, the reason why the bullets didn't hit me is because the bullets didn't hit me. And therefore, the fact that I'm here is proof that the bullets didn't hit me. This is the example of a cyclical argument. It's so weak that even your main, I'm not saying yours, but atheistic proponents don't even make this argument. It's so weak that you should literally put it into the philosophical dustbin. You know the philosophical dustbin. You open up, say, listen, man, this argument, throw it back, chuck it in there.
Yeah.
That's a failure of
I guess.
an idea. That's one of the failures. You can't throw, still you have to question it. You can't throw one and to favor one. That's a dogma.
I want your answer for this. Thank you for that contribution. Yes.
My answer to what? Whether or not we should throw out the argument that we're in the
using
universe where
probability.
things- Okay.
We are using probability.
Right. So,
you've used the
no,
anthropic
hang on,
principle.
hang on.
We put it
Just
into
a
the
second ago,
dustbin.
just
Now
a
what
second
we're
ago,
going
you
to
said that I could ask you a question in return.
Of course, Max.
So, in an evidence-based fashion, what is the probability that this universe has been created by something external to it? And how can you possibly know that as someone from within the universe? Because as you acknowledged yourself earlier on, if you're inside the universe, you can have no knowledge of anything outside it. So how is it you presume knowledge? There is an intelligent creator.
Say the question. Make the question clear. Because these are two questions. Let me just make sure.
You stated that as a being existing inside the universe, yes, you can have no knowledge of anything outside.
No knowledge.
No, you did. Yeah,
You
because
can
I
have
talked
no
about how
knowledge.
if you're inside the
So you're
balloon,
saying-
you can't know about the room, right?
Yeah.
And you agree. If we're inside the universe, we can't know about anything
You can
outside.
have you can have limited knowledge using empiricism.
So I understand your probabilistic
Let me-
argument
can
for
I-
the.
In fact, can I just make one clarification?
Alright.
You can have limited knowledge using empiricism because we're not able to perform the scientific method outside the universe because we're just simply not there. But I would maintain that using logical methods of deduction, induction, abduction, you can come to conclusions about that which is outside of the universe. Just to be clear. Go ahead.
I don't know that I fully accept that, but
Why not?
anyways. Why not? Because we're within the universe, right? So
Yeah, so what? What does that show? What does that mean? Who cares?
so we can theorize about things outside of it, but coming to conclusions about things outside of it is a bit presumptuous, don't you think?
No. I think that based on the evidences of what's inside, you can make conclusions and deductions about that which must be outside.
Okay. Well, I'll admit this. I haven't eaten since breakfast, and I did make a mistake there. I allowed you to trap me in the probabilistic argument, so kudos for that. But I will now ask you my question. What evidence do you have to support the existence of your God that doesn't come from a tome, something written down by other human beings? What evidence do you have?
I have not spoken about
here
any
and
book.
now? I know. But you have a belief system that comes from somewhere, and I can fairly confidently assert that you didn't just generate it yourself. Would that be fair to say?
I would say, listen.
Because if so, you're committing to being part of a belief system that no one else here is.
Listen, I'm just saying, you told me here now, something about book or something, yeah? I've not mentioned one religion, nor Christianity or Islam or Judaism.
Yeah,
or
just
Hinduism.
the probability of intelligent design, right? That's where you're driving.
I'm just talking about some physical realities. Okay?
Yeah.
So I don't know why you've made that point, that red herring, but that straw man argument. And as you've mentioned
It's not
before,
a straw man.
what's a straw man? You know what a straw man is? Okay, a straw man is when you cannot.
fallacious comparison.
Okay, you've admitted. Sorry to put you in the spot like this, but you've admitted that I trapped you in the probabilistic argument. Yeah. But why should it be a trap? Why don't you just accept the conclusions that we've
Well,
reached?
I guess, so here's something that I did say, and it is on the record, so you have to check if you like.
Go on, Max.
I said that in reality my belief system is based on two things, probability and evidence.
Sorry, so if I answer this question?
Yeah, I do actually.
This guy's
No, I'm alright.
Okay.
Alright.
Sorry, Max.
Well, it's alright, man, but if you want to do this and put me in front of your cameras, then you got to stay on message.
You're right. No, yeah, you're right.
So, probability and evidence, right? So you're right, that it is incredibly unlikely that the conditions for life would arise, and yet they seem to. And you can make an argument that that might be seen as evidence for the possibility of an external force acting, right?
That's what I've just done.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But let me ask you this then.
Yes, sir.
You believe in some force that has acted externally on our universe to create life, do you? Yes or
Some
no?
force?
Yeah, a force.
That is what?
You believe in a force that acted external from us onto our universe to create life, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, you do. Okay, so do you think that force is sort of an ethereal, all-encompassing force, or is it more specific? Does it have more concern with, say, the inhabitants of Earth and the inhabitants of other planets?
Well, these issues to do with my philosophical preferences have nothing to do with the existence or non-existence of the force. So if you're saying, do I believe in the force, we have to presuppose the existence of the force. So before we talk about what I believe the force's
It's not
interaction,
necessarily true. I
No,
mean,
but
I
Max,
could believe in
one thing at a
something that
time.
concretely doesn't exist.
Max, one thing at a time. If you are happy to continue assuming that there is a force, then I'll continue telling you about the qualities of the force and the logical reason why these qualities must exist within the force. But if you don't accept the force, then it's talking about something which does not exist.
Yeah.
So here, my question to you is, based on the evidences that we've looked at, based on mathematical models and probability theory and all these different things that we've talked about today, based on your own standards of truth, will you now accept that it's more probable than not that there was an intelligence behind the creation of the universe?
No, I don't think that I would. No, I don't think that I would.
Okay, now that
there's
is
a
a
model
contradiction.
where you could look at the universe as basically like a sandbox full of marbles, right? Like one of those things you can kind of shake and agitate the marbles. And from what we know about the combinations of chemicals that can form into molecules from component atoms, or even smaller down to like quarks and those sorts of things, right? They're really ultra tiny components of the physical world. Random interaction in a theoretically infinite, but even if it's not infinite, a very vast universe, will produce chemical reactions just by atoms colliding over time, right? Do you accept that? So yeah, sorry, those guys are loud. Do you accept that in even a very large universe, let's put infinity aside for a second because that seems to be a contentious issue. But
When you talk about, are you talking about time? Large in terms of quantifiable space or time, or both, or what?
let's say both. Both are necessary for this model.
Because we do live in a very big universe.
Yeah, so let's say it's just very big and not infinite, just for the sake of fun.
Okay.
And that it contains a very large number of component parts, right? And they all interact randomly. And so over time, many meaningless interactions occur, the kind that just turn into a little bit of heat or a little bit of light, or just don't do anything at all. Two atoms collide and they go boink because they're not chemically compatible, right? But over time, some of them will combine into more complex molecules. Now, those molecules will fly around randomly, and again, the great majority of those collisions are going to result in nothing. But some of them will result in something, and through that increasing complexity over time, you could arrive at the necessary conditions for life without an intelligent external force acting on the universe.
That's not what I'm talking
So
about.
can I just say, you've actually inserted a law by doing, you know, we said when they combine and some of them react. How do you know this is light? How do you know this is heat? How do you know when they combine? You've actually inserted laws. So what you're trying to do is
No, I can answer that. So the laws that I've inserted into my argument are ones that are based on the body of scientific research that we've done so far. So like I said earlier, I cannot tell you with 100% certainty that when you apply ink to a letter and press it into this page, it's going to make a letter. It's very likely, and it's a reliable business. I would have no problem starting up a printing press tomorrow making books, because I'm pretty damn certain that every time I try to make a book, I'm going to come up with a book. But it is possible that every once in a while it's going to explode. And I can't tell you with 100% certainty that it's not. So those physical laws that I'm talking about are physical laws that are very well supported by all kinds of things. Like most of us have a smartphone in our pocket. Its operations are based on our understanding of the physical laws. Do they sometimes go wrong? Do we have battery fires? Yes, but most of the time the batteries just charge and release energy as they're designed to. So you're right, I did insert some physical laws, but they're very well supported. And by all means, if you can disprove gravity or the availability of carbon to bond of oxygen, then do it.
The only thing we really want to do is say that these laws are not random.
Where did the laws come from?
That's what I'm trying
That's
to
the
say.
question.
Because
Where did the laws actually come from? Did the laws? Where did the laws come from? Yeah, where did the laws come from?
We don't have absolute knowledge of where they came
When you
from,
say
but
nature,
it's presumptuous.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Why nature?
Beyond the understanding.
Guys, if you want to debate, you have to do it off camera or later. Not that I don't want to hear what you have to say, I do.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so the laws are based on experimentation. Where did they come from? We don't know. But we don't know one way or the other. Like, both sides of this debate are in the dark as far as that's concerned. You can't say with certainty it was an intelligent designer.
I'm saying
I can't
that-
say with certainty. And I want to be clear, it's very likely that wasn't the case, but I cannot say with 100% certainty. What?
Max.
Oh,
This-
oh.
Max, no.
Alright.
No.
Maybe.
Let me tell you something. Philosophically,
Yeah.
let me tell you something. Philosophically, there is nothing in the whole of philosophy which you can say is A, incorrigible completely, which means, you know what incorrigible means. Number two, that you could say could be said absolutely with certainty. Yeah, okay.
It's all based on likelihood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is
Now we're
why.
back to the probability
This is
argument,
why. Thank you.
Honestly, everything's probability.
Everything is probability. Now, that is why everything is faith. That's the thing is about atheists and agnostics are the only ones who have faith. So they can make themselves feel good about themselves, self-aggrandize in a narcissistic type way, pointing the finger of blame at the backward. I'm not saying that's what you do.
Yeah, sure.
But the backward religious
I said
type.
agnostic earlier, so you gotta remember that point.
Not you. I'm not making this
just
point.
those other
But
atheists.
because those other atheists that say, look, you guys believe in the fairy tales of the old and you have no evidences and you have faith and blind faith like that. This is a disingenuous philosophical position. Everyone has some kind of faith. We base the faith on probabilistic type reasoning.
Yeah.
Today I've shown you and you've come to a conclusion almost, but I don't know why you're not admitting it.
The reason is this.
That the universe
There is no
probabilistically more likely to come from an
experiment that has
intelligent
ever
being.
been run so far, and again, open to being proved wrong. There's no experiment that's been run so far that has proved in any way the acting of a cosmic force upon everything on Earth.
This is not the condition you set for us. Let me hold on. Oh, sorry. You have not said in the beginning of this discussion that your standard is a scientific empirical standard.
Yeah.
You have not said that. Even that's a weaker standard, the probabilistic standard. Because if you use that standard, you can't even prove the existence of mathematics.
Do you feel confident getting on a bus? That it's going to roll forward when the driver presses on the gas pedal?
Listen, this is what you're saying here has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
No, it
I'm
does.
saying
It has a lot to do with
No,
what
no,
you're
hold on. I'm saying that you have said in the beginning of this
That
discussion.
it's a probabilistic argument, and then I congratulated you on trapping
No.
me. Yeah.
No problem. I'm not trying to trap you, Max. I'm just trying to show you that.
You are. For your audience's sake, you are.
Listen, if that's
Call
how
a spade a spade. This is about you demonstrating to your audience that theism is a more concretely demonstrable reality than atheism.
I think that's part of it. But you know what?
a part of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Come on, that's why you're here.
Probably that's the majority.
That's the
of
bulk of why you're here.
Yeah, okay, I take that. I will not only demonstrate to the audience, but to the interlocutor as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So here, I'm saying to you, it seems like you you call it a trap. I don't know why you call it. Why are you calling it a trap?
Because it was a well-constructed argument, and I didn't think before I spoke, and therefore you got me into a position where I had to admit that the likelihood of our current universe existing without intelligent design was low.
Max.
But I don't accept that as adequate proof of the existence of a design.
Fine, I will leave it at that. You know why I will leave it at that?
What's that?
Because I personally believe you have contradicted your own truth standard. You've almost said that there's 99% possibility, 99.9 recurring percent of possibility, that the universe came out not as a result of randomness, which would necessitate non-randomness, which would necessitate a
But
force.
by the very nature of probability, everything that has a representative number tied to it, right? Like every chance could occur, right? So by your own model, although it's
You have the
likely,
existence of infinity only, which we talked about before. We don't want to go around in circles.
yeah, we don't want to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So I did say that it's less than a 1% chance, right?
Yeah.
But what you need to do in order for this to be a very concretely convincing presentation and not just like a semi-weak one, is you need to then follow up on that and say, and this is why I know that we are not living in the percentile where this did occur randomly. Because so far all you've done is prove that both are possible. And I accept that. I mean, I'd be a fool not to.
I haven't showed you that. I've showed you that the universe has a 99.9 recurring percent chance of not coming about randomly, which would necessitate that it has to have come about non-randomly, which would necessitate a organized force. And you're saying that you don't want to believe that. So this is I personally believe it's intellectual dishonesty. Because that was your own standard. Yeah. And that's why you call it a trap. But why call it a trap? It's not a trap. You're in a trap.
I think I did actually. Let's back up a step.
Believe that much.
Hang on.
Makes you believe that.
Hang on. Just 1 second. I realized I made a mistake.
Okay.
In an infinite universe. No, I'm fine. Fuck it. You want to end this thing?
Okay. Listen, Max. I think the best thing to do is me and you have a conversation off camera. Because I think there's a feeling that we're doing it for the sake of the audience. So we'll do it maybe.
Well, let me just dismantle that really quick. You wouldn't have a bunch of cameras if you weren't doing it for the sake of the audience. So
I'm doing it for the sake of the audience. Yeah. I want the audience to be acquainted with the arguments, and I want an interlocutor to provide the devil's advocate position, and you've done a good job in doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that if you want to do it afterwards as well, we can do it afterwards.
I may.
Okay, we'll talk about it. You're invited to dinner. We're going to break our fast.
You're up, buddy.
It's yours.